Hey, it's Joe Glines. In this is going to be a pretty advanced video overall, probably pretty confusing. I'll try to explain my process and what I'm doing here and why as I go. So I work with, try to work with a lot of APIs. The more and more web scraping I do, the more I like trying to find if there's an API available, or just even if the browser is triggering an API call that you can't necessarily, it's not a public API, but you can mimic that traffic and solve things. And so I use Fiddler for monitoring my network traffic because it's simple. There are other ones that I think do more advanced stuff and see more traffic, but it's that I can't use them. Wireshark, I think, is the one that's just, to me, it's so confusing. But let me go to Fiddler. I've made other videos on Fiddler, so hopefully Fiddler's not new to you. Right now there's no traffic being shown because I have a filter on right now to just show Reddit traffic because that's going to be my example. In this example, I wanted to demonstrate the actual API. Now, it doesn't have to be an API, I just explained. Sometimes you can use your browser and see that they're calling an API and see some traffic. But this is where you can go in, you can say, oh, I want to look at the subreddit in, let's say, /top. And I think somewhere in here they documented it, but I had it in one of my files that this URL, this Reddit/r AutoHotkey /top/.xml will return the data, and you can see it here. Now, I'm going to refresh this page. Let me see if I can get this to come down here. I'm going to refresh this page, and we're going to see that traffic show up in Fiddler. Right? So here in this, you can kind of see the response size. This is the big file. In Fiddler here, the top is your actual call out. And I don't know why, maybe I need to maximize it. Here we go. The bottom part is what was returned. And so if we look at this XML, this should be, there's a lot of XML in here, right? This has structure, so it expands it out for us. So that's all fine and good, but this was a browser call to the page. And what I'd like to be able to do is to use one of probably two objects in AutoHotkey, the win HTTP request or the XML, whatever other COM object for doing requests. I think I have tutorials on both of those. The one with the XML, I don't think of it as XML because it really doesn't have much to do with that, but it leverages your IE cookies. And so you don't have to pass along the cookies and other information. It'll automatically borrow those, which is pretty cool, but also it limits what you can shove into it. So the win HTTP request, that's the one we're going to do a demo on here. And what I wanted to show you was, I should have explained this at the beginning. When I'm working with a lot of APIs and I try a new one, they'll have documentation. They'll have documentation on using Python or C or JSON, or JavaScript, but they don't ever have one in AutoHotkey, right? Often I'll see one in curl, and that I'd say is one of the most consistent ones. Curl is a language that's been around for a really long time. I think it's command. What does it stand for? I don't remember, but it's really run from a DOS prompt kind of thing, right? It's an old language for doing web requests, and so it's one of the standards you'll find on most of them. And it just annoys me because that's the one I'll look at, and I'll try to adapt the curl API documentation to AutoHotkey. However, some of the things aren't very clear, and it's confusing. And so I thought, what would be really cool is if I was to take the curl example, install curl on my computer, run it, look at the traffic, and then adapt the traffic to AutoHotkey. And hey, you know what? This traffic I've gotten pretty good at and looking at and saying, I can write a script that will grab the traffic from Fiddler and convert it to the syntax I need for AutoHotkey. So that was this is the whole reason of this video. So in this example here, if we highlight this one, we look at the raw, this is wow, that's a big cookie. So here's the cookie. But here are these are headers. All of these here are headers. Here is actually up to here. This is where it went to. It was a GET request. And so I wrote a script that I can be on the one I want and hit a button, and it goes and writes, it rips it out of Fiddler for me and writes the syntax to go do that API request. And so actually, let me copy all this, come over here, and let's go to the Fiddler test Fiddler. It's probably the same thing. Yeah. So now when I run this, we should see down here now, let's see, this is, it's XML, so it's gonna look like it's one line if I remember right. So I'm running this script, and here it came back. This is it was a 200, which is successful. This is this message box right here. So the status, and then all the headers, just in case you don't have to have this enabled. I just like having them handy, and then I can disable it. But it dumped. I'm using Studio, so this output window, it takes the response and dumped it into here. And this is this really, like, if I copy this, let's paste it into site and then turn on wrapping, you'll see it's a lot of text, right? It's that XML stuff. And we could have, I have a library for making the XML pretty, but that's out of the scope of this video. What I love, though, is, and it's not quite 100% because sometimes cookies have double quotes in them, and sometimes they have semicolons, and so I haven't quite gotten that right, and sometimes it's a get versus a post request. Unfortunately, when we look at the Fiddler traffic, not that one. Let's come back to Fiddler. These are all get requests, but let's see if we can generate a post. What can I do that's not too private? Let's go to the AutoHotkey documentation. Oh, you know what? I have my filter. Sorry. I have my filter on to just show Reddit traffic, so that's why it was not showing anything else. So now let's reload that. Here we go. Get return, whatever. Still a get. I was hoping that would have been a post. What I wanted to show you was, let's come to here, and I think my weather stuff. No, let's get. Boy, oh, there. I saw one somewhere. Stop. Here's a post. In the post, all I really wanted to show in this raw is here is the payload. And so here's my cookie, and here's some other stuff. Hopefully there's nothing in there. I don't think I have an account with them anyway, so it wouldn't be anything that was going to cost me money. But this is the payload, and that works out fine. But what I'm doing, let me show you here, is I'm using, it's funny because I love AutoHotkey, right? There's so many ways to grab stuff. In my actual Fiddler script, the one that ripping it from there, I use the when menu select item, and it's going down and getting the copy session, right? So if we come back in here, you see edit, copy session. So it's sending that menu thing lightning fast. And you'll see when we do that, this is what it looks like. And this top part is what we need. Actually, no, let me rephrase that. That's the confusing part, is this top part here is the type of call, the endpoint. This actually you don't need, so we have to get rid of that. All of these are headers that you need to configure. Then there's a space, and then there's the payload. If it's a post request, then there'll be a payload. It doesn't always start with a bracket, unfortunately. So it was kind of tricky to say, give me some logic for getting this. And then it's going to, this is the response. So it includes both the sending out and coming back. And of course we don't want the coming back. And so, as much as I liked using the copy selection, from the session, it had more information than I wanted, and unfortunately there was no real hard break. So what I did was I said, hey, if you see this, because so far every time I've done it, that's been consistent, not the 200, but this part has been consistent. So go ahead and stop processing the file. So I got it to get out this payload, but as I said, it's not quite. I'm just not 100% certain if there's always going to be a space here, if this is always going to be this. But and sometimes this has characters like these double quotes and that. So how do we put that into here? Oh, also, if you note, not this one. Let's look at the test one. So this one didn't have any key value pairs. It didn't have any parameters in the URL. So when it has parameters in the URL, I have it automatically put in the key value pairs. Let's see if we can get another one. Let's clear all this. Come back to here. Actually, that one, Texas, no, that's still. Let's see what that does. Okay, so see here, see these, there's the question mark, and then this is the key, and that's the value, and then the ampersand, and then there's all those. So when I run my hotkey here, and it gets this, notice in this one, and let me put it in Studio so we can see it a little clearer. So we're in the test fiddler, paste it all. So here, I have each of those parameters broken out separately. It dumps them into an AutoHotkey object, and then it parses it all together, and it'll put them all back together for us later. But what I like is, if I want to go in and change a given parameter, I don't have to go hunt and find it somewhere. This is what I always do with the URL and the parameters in the URL, is isolate them, and then it makes it easier for me if I want to programmatically change a value. It's already isolated, right, into its own little thing. So I did break that out. Yeah, it's a work in progress. This, by the way, down here, I recommend if you're using Fiddler, this will say, hey, if Fiddler's a thing, if it's a given program, add this additional header to the local host. This is the proxy. Added as a proxy. Oh yeah, set proxy. And it tells it to go through Fiddler so you can see the traffic from AutoHotkey. And that's a really cool thing, is if I run, let's go back in here. Notice this all says Chrome as the process. Let me cut all those and get rid of them. Now, if I run this one, you're going to see here, now it actually, something went wrong, but we see it was from AutoHotkey, right? And so that's one of the advantages. There's, tools, debugging tools and stuff in like Chrome and IE and Firefox for looking at your traffic. But of course, it only does its traffic, not the traffic on the network. And so even though I'll use Chrome for looking at the traffic, what I don't like is when I put it into AutoHotkey and I try to run it, I have no idea how well I matched what the traffic was in Chrome. This way I can see both. And now you can see why I still had the filters on, right? Because it's just crazy how much traffic you can end up having. And there are filters, which I use also, but I don't even know where these are going. Anyway, so I hope that helps. I'm not going to share this code right away, but I'll probably share it in a couple days. I'm going to review it a bit more and try and clean it up a bit and make it a little more consistent. All right, cheers.